Imagine you've got some money saved in a bank account. One day, you go to an ATM to withdraw a bit of it, only to be told that all your hard-earned funds have been frozen. This is the plight of more than 250,000 South Africans, mostly from Kwazulu Natal. They've collectively put 2.4 billion rand into the state-owned Ithala Bank, and these funds now hang in the balance amid an ongoing liquidation drama. Hi, my name is Pieter-Louis Myburgh. I'm an investigative journalist for Scorpio at Daily Maverick. The Ithala Development Finance Corporation, or IDFC, is a finance agency owned by the Kwazulu Natal provincial government. It was set up to promote economic development in the province, and it does so by funding small to medium enterprises and emerging farmers, among other investment activities. Within the IDFC group, there's also a subsidiary called Ithala SOC, and it is this entity that's now at the center of the ongoing turmoil. Ithala SOC is essentially the IDFC's banking arm. Since 2001, Ithala SOC has been engaged in all the financial activities you'd associate with a commercial bank, setting up bank accounts for customers, taking their deposits, and also granting a variety of loans, such as personal loans, home loans, and business loans. But here's the kicker. Technically, Ithala SOC was never really a bank. In its nearly 25 years of existence, the entity never succeeded in obtaining a banking license. Instead, it had been undertaking all of its banking activities on the back of special exemptions from the relevant authorities. The foremost authority that watches over the country's banking sector is the Prudential Authority, which forms part of the South African Reserve Bank. In 2022, the Prudential Authority issued a final exemption notice to Ithala SOC. It told the entity that it should use the opportunity to get its affairs in order so that it might finally obtain a banking license. There are several factors that prevented Ithala SOC from obtaining the license. The Prudential Authority argues that Ithala SOC failed to follow proper banking practices and lacked experienced, skilled leadership at the top. In some cases, it even struggled to meet anti-money laundering requirements because of its outdated IT systems. Beyond governance issues, there are also serious financial concerns. Since 2008, Ithala SOC has accumulated losses of 520 million rand. Over the same period, the KZN provincial government has had to put up nearly 650 million rand in taxpayers' funds to help keep it afloat. In December 2023, Ithala SOC's final exemption notice expired, and it still hadn't managed to obtain a banking license. The Prudential Authority then appointed a repayment administrator, which was tasked with winding down Ithala SOC's business affairs. The most crucial thing that now needed to happen was for Ithala SOC to repay the 2.4 billion rand it held on behalf of its depositors. Using the powers it derives from the Banks Act, the Prudential Authority instructed Ithala to compile a report that would detail how it intended to wind down its affairs in an orderly manner, so that its depositors could get their money back. This development sparked a series of court applications by the Prudential Authority, Ithala SOC, and the KZN provincial government. The court cases sought to affirm whether the PA was within its rights to put a halt on Ithala's banking activities, or whether it was acting outside of its mandate. The Prudential Authority won most of these court battles. Meanwhile, throughout 2024, the Prudential Authority investigated Ithala SOC's affairs, after which it made two key findings. One, Ithala had continued its banking activities despite the Prudential Authority's instruction to cease doing so. Two, and this is really important, Ithala SOC was technically and legally insolvent. In January 2025, the Prudential Authority therefore launched a new court application for the provisional liquidation of Ithala SOC. It is this court matter that gives us some indication of how precarious Ithala's financial position seems to be. According to the Prudential Authority's Solvency report, Ithala SOC only has about 850 million rand that it could immediately access. Remember, Ithala has to repay 2.4 billion rand to its depositors, so there appears to be a massive shortfall of roughly 1.6 billion rand. Technically, or at least on paper, Ithala SOC does own enough assets to cover the shortfall, but it's not that simple. By far the biggest portion of Ithala's assets consists of loans that the bank had granted over the years. Keep in mind that these loans are not like assets that Ithala SOC can readily unlock or cash in on. One would first have to get the money back from those who'd received the loans. The recoverability of these loans, which total more than 2 billion rand, is really the core issue now. The repayment administrator has not had a chance to analyze Ithala's entire loan book, but its early assessment does raise concern. For instance, the repayment administrator identified staff loans valued at 210 million rand. These loans, and I now quote from the Solvency report, include instances where declined credit decisions were allegedly overruled by the office of the CEO and where loans were processed without following proper procedures. The repayment administrator, meanwhile, views the latter figure as an estimate, a low one at that. If an even bigger portion of Ithala's R2 billion loan book is unrecoverable, then naturally there will be less funds available to repay the people who've put their savings in Ithala. Daily Maverick's own investigations raise more questions over lending practices at the broader Ithala group. In 2006, the Ithala Development Finance Corporation granted an R11.8 million loan to Dr. Mkhize, wife of former Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize, a prominent member of the ANC. The loan was granted to one of Dr. Mkhize's companies and was used to acquire a farm near Pieter-Maritzburg. At the time of the loan, Zweli Mkhize was MEC for Finance in KZN, which controls Ithala. There were questions over whether this constituted an alleged conflict of interest, but Zweli Mkhize denied that he had any way influenced the process. By 2020, the loan would have been roughly 3/4 into its life, but we obtained a document that showed how little of it had been paid off at that point. In fact, Dr. Mkhize's company had hardly touched the loan, which seemed to be in arrears to the tune of more than R5 million. A hefty loan made to a politically exposed person, which was seemingly allowed to fall substantially into arrears, raises obvious questions. Did the IDFC indulge Mkhize because of its ties to a powerful political figure? Are there more politically exposed persons to be found in the Ithala Group's loan books, including those of its banking arm, Ithala SOC? Finally, to what extent did dubious or just plain imprudent lending practices affect Ithala's financial position? It is early days yet in the Ithala saga, but if it does turn out that substantial portions of these loans are not recoverable, we could well end up with another major scandal at a state-owned financial institution. The story is still unfolding and we'll keep you updated. If you enjoyed this explainer, support our journalism by becoming a Maverick Insider. You'll find the details in the caption below.